Imagine leaving your house in the morning for either school, work, or maybe it's a normal day, and having a fear of your family being taken when you return, not because of anything they did wrong, but because of the actions of immigration customs enforcement happening in the community. Take a second and think about what that kind of uncertainty would do in your daily life, the way you move, speak, and even the way you decide on whether you would ask for help or not. For many people living in the United States, this isn't just a thought or a wonder. It's something that is actually affecting how they experience every single day before anything else can happen. Immigration enforcement carried out by the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, has created a widespread fear within the immigrant communities across the country. This fear does not stay limited to individuals who may be directly involved with immigration proceedings. It extends into entire families, including children who are U.S. citizens, and into Hispanic and Latino communities, where many people live with the uncertainty of possible separation or unlawful immigration detention of a U.S. citizen. As stated in a community psychology article, nearly 4 in 5 families screened in family detention centers have a credible fear of persecution should they be forced to return to the countries from which they migrated. Due to this constant sense of risk, many families begin to change how they live their everyday lives. Some avoid public spaces, others limit their travel, and many become hesitant to interact with schools, healthcare systems, and law enforcement when they need help. Routine decisions that most people make without thinking automatically to start feel stressed or unsafe when there is a risk of exposure. As stated in a 2018 article from KFF, in some families, older children took on jobs or increased roles for siblings. Stakeholders also noted that older children often take on challenging roles advocating and translating for their parents. A number of families noted that older children changed their plans for the future, for example, getting a job instead of joining the armed forces or declining acceptance to a university. Over time, this fear will affect how communities function. When people are terrified to report crimes, important issues will go unaddressed. It weakens the trust between institutions and reduces cooperation that is needed to make neighborhoods functional and safe. There's also a significant emotional impact. Living with the possibility of sudden detention or family separation can create ongoing stress and anxiety for everyone involved. For young people in particular, the uncertainty can affect their ability to focus in school and feel comfortable in their daily environment, as well as mental, physical, and emotional health. As stated in a 2025 American Psychological Association, ultimately, these overlapping inequalities place them at heightened risk for a range of mental health conditions, such as anxiety, depression, PTSD, alcohol misuse, suicidal ideation, and increased vulnerability to sexual violence, as well as chronic illnesses, including diabetes, liver disease, heart disease, kidney disease, and more. All of this shows you that immigration enforcement does not only influence legal status, it changes how people behave, communities, and how they function, as well as how safe individuals feel in their everyday lives. To address these issues, changes need to happen at both the policy and community level to reduce harm and improve safety. One important step is limiting how local and state systems cooperate with immigration enforcement unless it is absolutely required by law. When local law enforcement is not involved in immigration related actions, people are more likely to feel safe reporting crimes and to seek help if needed without fear of consequences. Another area that needs major improvement is the immigration detention facilities. To give an idea of what was happening to the people that came to America, I'll read a quote from the people they detained. As stated in a 2025 article from Vera that Anna sent in detention, we had to sleep on concrete benches or the floor because there are so many of us. I was cold and so sad to be there. Sometimes they give us a little mattress, but there is never enough of them. They give you aluminum to wrap yourself in, but it doesn't warm you. Sometimes you don't sleep. I brought my son from Guatemala so that he could have a better life here in the United States. He was being threatened by gangs where we lived. They showed up at our house with weapons looking for him. They threatened to hurt him and kill me if he would not join. My poor nephew had been killed by one of the gangs, and so we believed their threats. When we crossed into the United States and were in the desert, we saw the headlights of the immigration cars. They asked us what we were doing, and we said we wanted asylum. They sent us to a detention facility, which was a terrible place. They separated me from my son after we were detained. I was in a cell with another woman like me, and my son with young kids like him. I couldn't see him, and I was so sad and worried. It was so sad that there was many children there, all closed in. It just fills me with sadness to remember hearing them cry. As stated in a 2025 article from Vera that Paul had sent in, I asked for asylum at the border station in Tijuana. That is what the law tells you to do. I started to worry when Border Control put us on a bus with blackened windows. when they shackled our hands and feet. I was terrified. They put us on a plane and would not remove the shackles to let us eat or go to the bathroom. Why this humiliation? Were we going to jump out of the plane? Increasing accountability, enforcing stricter standards, and improving the monitoring of these facilities would help ensure that individuals are being treated with basic respect and rights that protect them while being detained in these detention centers. It is also important to provide stronger legal protection and hearings for these and access to legal support for individuals and families facing immigration proceedings. Many people, unfortunately, do not understand their rights or have access to adequate representation, which can heavily affect outcomes in detention and deportation cases. Expanding access to legal aid would help create a more fair and balanced system. If these issues continue without change, immigrant communities will most likely continue to live in fear. Families will continue to be afraid to fully participate in their everyday life, avoiding schools and healthcare facilities. In the future, the stress and instability experienced by families does not improve. Then the cycle of fear will continue to affect immigrants and people of color. However, if changes are made, the situation could look entirely different, with better limits on enforcement involvement. Stronger protections and oversight could also reduce harm in detention settings and ensure more consistent standards of treatment. In this scenario, communities would be more likely to function with a better sense of stability. Because everything that was discussed, action is needed from both communities and policymakers. Supporting policies that limit unnecessary cooperation with immigrant enforcement in local spaces is one step forward to reducing fear and harm for communities. It is so incredibly important to support organizations that support legal aid and resources for immigrant families, especially those who are navigating detention or the deportation process. Staying informed, sharing accurate information, and speaking up about these issues can help bring more awareness to how these policies affect real people. As stated in a NNIRR website, call your congressional representatives and pressure them to do the right thing, to protect human rights, due process, and the right to asylum.